Oh, damn it. Well, okay, it is what it is.
Oh, you've been following that case like really long too, like the whole time, right?
Daily. Yeah, it's been going on for about a month now, and we've been following it with a reporter there who's been reporting daily on what's going on.
Yeah, because I was watching on your channel, and it was just like wow, wow, and to the fact that did they get a mistrial because the jury split?
Yeah, jury deadlocked on, and they needed to. There were 3 counts, and they couldn't agree on even one of them.
Wow.
And the count breakdown that Tony just tweeted out was mostly against, was not guilty on
Really?
this. So yeah, I'm very, very, very disappointed. Right
Are you
now.
surprised?
No. No, I didn't have enough hope for this to be surprise.
That's so sad.
Yeah, my faith is a little low on this topic. Because I've been watching the law get away with, Scientology get away with stuff with the law for years now.
Yeah.
So it's, yeah. Generally sets a retrial date for 60 days out, and they're going to discuss it. So they're going to do a retrial, I guess.
All right. Well, I guess you got to do what you got to do.
Yeah, got to do what you got to do. Meanwhile, the fight goes on.
Yeah, screw Scientology.
That's one way of putting it. I have harsher words, but yeah.
Oh, well, we can get to that.
They don't have to hold back on our account.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Debate Hub. I am your host, Chesh, the Master Debater, and I have a whole hell of a lot of fun planned for today. Look at this cast of characters. I am so excited. Oh, hey. Rude, but okay. I didn't press that button, but fine.
That was a little premature.
Yeah.
Get out of here.
That was a good discussion. Yeah. Glad
The end. Go away.
We've changed lives.
It won't leave. It's stuck there now. It lives there. We're just not playing anymore. Oh, I know what's happening. It's the live chat. The live chat is making that happen. That explains everything. There we go. That should fix that. All right. Welcome. We're here. I'm happy to be here. And who do we got with us? Who wants to start? We've got Dave, we got Barry, we got Chris, and we got Seamus, and I'm hype. So do you guys want to tell everybody who you are? Dave, you start.
I'll start first, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm Dave, mostly known as Trolley Dave on Answers and Reason. We generally stream stuff to do with atheism and philosophy and critical thinking and skepticism and that kind of thing.
Yeah, and so you've got your master's in philosophy now, right?
Yeah, I've got a BA and a MA in philosophy, and I'm working towards a PhD.
So you did decide to go for your PhD. That's fantastic. And
Yeah.
good to hear. Barry, who are you?
When you decided to get your master's in philosophy, did anybody tell you to think about it?
No.
Okay.
I'm happy being unemployed, so, you know.
Okay. I don't have a master's in anything, but my degree also makes me unemployable. I have a degree in classical history. That's not why I'm here. I'm just a guy.
You're a writer, aren't you, nowadays?
I am a writer. I do write things, yeah.
Thanks.
But basically, I'm just a guy. Sorry. What? I write about all sorts of things. I don't know how to describe myself. I'm sorry.
Barry's really fun to tease. You'll find him over on the Free Thought Prophet, usually going on rants about history or politics.
Yeah, that'll do.
Chris, how are you today?
Well, frankly, life has been better for me. Literally just found out about that court case as we were going live. So my head's a little abuzz right now. But otherwise, I am actually wonderful and things are great. So, 6 of 1, whatever. But anyway, I'm Chris Shelton. I'm a YouTuber and a former Scientology member and high-level Scientologist, raised in that. And after getting out 10 years ago, I wrote a book, started analyzing that and cults in general and how they work. And I, started a YouTube channel and started talking about that, interviewing other people about it, and at the same time, I'm also a member of the atheist community in one form or another, and so I've been interested in talking about these topics as well.
Wonderful. Seamus, who are you, and how do you feel about the atheist communities?
Geez, that's a loaded question.
Yep.
I'm the host of the Free Thought Prophet. Started off as one asshole, then it was a pair of assholes. Now somehow I got 4 assholes on the show, counting myself.
They're multiplying.
One of them's above me, so I mean that in a loving way. So we try to talk about the issues related to secular world, also some politics and stuff as well. As far as atheist organizations, it's pretty obvious. If you look at our recent history, we've been pretty much having at least some go at one organization in the crosshairs, that being Atheist Alliance International. I don't know what the short version of that is. What's the short version there, Barry, of the issues with Atheist Alliance?
Oh, I don't do short versions.
Yeah. Oh, yes, you do. We had a whole pitch meeting about this.
I'll do the short version.
Meeting that these people knew nothing about, Seamus.
TLDR.
I said we have to value concision in presentation. I didn't say we do short versions of things. Well, the TLDR is there's this group of oligarchs in charge of AAI, or what used to be AAI, and they kind of cluster bollocksed the organization at a not AGM they sort of had in 2018. And a small group of people took control, and they've been slowly grinding the organization into the ground ever since. They have, in the last year, they've burnt through 4 presidents, and they've adopted, never a sign of whether it's Argentina in the 90s or the AAI this year, never a good sign. They've recently adopted a policy of silence, not answering anything at all that anybody says to them, which works fine as long as you don't have a rolling clusterfuck. If you just have like one fuck, then you can get over it by not talking about it, and maybe things will blow over. But if you have a rolling clusterfuck of constantly new stuff that you're fucking up on, the silent thing does not work. It just makes you look stupider and stupider. And that's kind of what the AAI have been doing. The latest fuck in the fuckmobile they've been involved with is I try to joke around a little bit, but it's also serious. There's an organization in Kenya called Atheists in Kenya. They're the only registered atheist organization in Kenya, and the fundamentalist religious people out in Kenya keep trying to hobble them and remove their registered status, because the argument is that under certain articles of their constitution, I guess the preamble, they are unconstitutional. Atheists are unconstitutional by their very existence. And this organization, they're going to try and deregister him. And Michael Sherlock, who used to be the executive director of Atheist Alliance International before Nixon resigned, he set up a GoFundMe. Sorry, I could say it in the passive tense, before he was resigned, I guess. He set up a GoFundMe for this organization, and the legal costs of a guy called Harrison Mumia, who is in charge of Atheists in Kenya, is the name of the organization, to fight the court case. Some other people some people that I know who are involved with the Free Thought Prophet podcast put the AAI, the Atheists in Kenya is a member of AAI. They're an affiliate. They're a paid up affiliate of AAI. AAI has done nothing to help them. They're also a member of Humanists International. Humanists International have tried to give them some publicity. AAI has done nothing. They've said nothing. They've done nothing, which would be fine because you'd expect nothing from them. Oof. But they have acted. Yeah, because this is the clown car of fuck, remember? But they have acted because people I know who put up links to the fundraiser for the Atheists in Kenya, those links were deleted from the AAI Facebook page.
And that brings us exactly to our topic about what atheist communities can do, are supposed to do, and what they shouldn't do. So, like, one of the things I think is a really good example is self-policing, and how much can you police your own group, right? Do atheists, because the thing is I think a lot of people kind of get caught up in interpolitics in their own countries, and so because they get caught up in their own interpolitics in their own countries, and like something that I would call like kind of a first world problem type thing. So not that it's not a problem, but you kind of lose sight of those priorities when you're talking about things that are happening, such as in Kenya. So if we're talking about whether or not atheist organizations should exist, we forget that there are atheists across the world that still do need a lot of support.
Atheism means something different everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you're let's say you're in Saudi Arabia, atheism means something completely different than atheism where I am in Ireland.
You mean by mean something different, do you mean it has different sets of consequences connected with it, or the word itself literally means something different?
Well, a little bit of both, actually. Now you've brought it up. I meant consequences, but you've made the mistake of asking me a question, and now I will answer you. Atheist can also mean something different. Like years ago, in the 1930s, the only man who's ever been denaturalized out of Irish citizenship was denaturalized for being a communist, and that's what atheist meant in 1930s Ireland.
Atheist
Basically,
meant
communism, the same as communism. More or less. And I'm from what I gather in America too during the same years, because they put a thing called under God into their money or something, or into their slogan in the 1950s, and that was directly a response to communist
Russia
fears. Yeah,
That's
because
right.
atheist and communist would be fairly equivalent, or whatever you call that, congruent, whatever the word is.
Well, the godless commies, right? The godless commies.
Yes,
So
and my dad remembers that
we couldn't be that, so we had to be
Right.
the opposite of that, right?
And my dad remembers that the churches were constantly praying for the conversion of Russia and the conversion of China.
Right.
How did that work?
Even though there is a Russian Orthodox Church and there's a whole lot of, very theistic
Right.
Russians, but
Well, this would have been the 1940s.
Yeah, they didn't quite.
They switched the conversion of China then, and
Yeah.
Well,
but
there's
never,
like
they don't
a
pray for the conversion of Arabia, or they don't pray for the conversion of Algeria for some reason, or Egypt. Oh yeah,
Yeah,
they'll
Afghanistan.
play with the communists, but no one dares go up against the Muslims. We're all scared of the Muslims, aren't we?
I mean, that's something that you hear criticism on, and I'm not sure how much you guys have heard, but so I'd love to hear about how much you guys get pushback on. Oh, you guys only come after Christians. Do you guys get a lot of that?
Oh yeah.
All
Oh
the time.
yeah.
All the time. I
Yeah.
get to my blog all
Yeah.
the time. They keep sending me messages saying, "Why don't you have a go at the Muslims? Why don't you have a go at the Muslims?" And Dara O'Brien, who's an Irish comedian, has a routine about it. He says, comedians get it all the time. He said, "How come?" He said, "I get people saying, how come you never have a go at the Muslims?" And he said, "Well," he said, "it's quite simple." He said, "First of all, I know fuck all about the Muslims, and secondly, you also know fuck all about the Muslims." And Stuart Lee made another point when some people said it to him. He said, "When people say this to you, they don't actually mean that they don't want Muslim comedy. What they want you is to be racist against Muslims, or whatever you want to call that word. They want you to mock them and make fun of them and so on. They don't actually want like Islam themed comedy, of which there is lots." They don't want to hear that. If you do make those kind of jokes, they're like, "Oh no, not like that, Stu, not like that."
That just
we
sounds
want you to
like
make fun of
a misunderstanding of what comedy is supposed to be. Comedy is not really supposed to. Malicious comedy generally isn't funny.
And a lot of
But they
all
want you to
that
be
is,
malicious.
what it's a lot of whataboutism too, as in, why are you messing with me? Why aren't you messing with the other guys? They're worse than we are. It's a lot of that, which
They think
I
that
don't
comedians
think
are
anybody.
afraid to make fun of Islam because they think that they're afraid they're
Well-
going to get murdered or something.
Well, David Cross.
Well, it's not completely unfounded. I mean,
Yeah.
No,
that's
that's
not like
true.
those fears come out of nowhere.
Right,
I mean,
but,
even in
that's
recent
like- that's
history.
Sorry, there's lag.
trashed Islam. I trash Islam a lot on my blog, and I'm not afraid of anything or anyone. And it's attached to my name.
No,
They know my
I mean,
address, so.
I go after Scientology. I'm clearly not afraid of things, but I.
Oh man, you're a rock star. Are you fucking kidding me?
I mean, it's my thing, right? So I
Oh,
do
it's
understand taking on dangerous things. But even Scientology is not going to come kill me because of some of the statements that I've made, and there
You say
is
that now with
fear
several deep fakes.
Yeah, I
and
know.
VPNs.
Yeah, but anyway, I'm just saying it is a real fear, which is what the reason I haven't gone after it is actually kind of a combination of both of those things, because I've mentioned radicalism and radical extremists, and when I talk about that, I can talk about radical Christians or radical Islamists, same thing, as far as the psychology of it goes. But the fact is, I don't know jack all about the deep dive of Islam. And until I do, and that's a deep dive to take, and until I do, I don't know that, it's my place to go into deep criticism about it either.
Well, from my understanding is Muslim culture, or at least the Muslim apologists, have a lot better understanding of philosophy in general than I think a lot of like your Christian nationalists, for example, are going to have. So they're a little bit more difficult to handle when it comes to particularly like online Twitter arguments, because the concepts are a lot more difficult to cover, but not necessarily when it comes to like criticism of the culture. I know that Aaron has kind of tried to, like Aaron Raw has tried to kind of delve into those kinds of debates. But Dave, do you have a thought on that? As the philosopher?
Aaron's arguments were kind of terrible, but a lot of Muslim apologists do kind of know the philosophy a lot better, like they're more familiar with things like the contingency argument. But you do find a lot of criticism of Islam. We do it on Answers and Reason.
So it's like a matter of a more complex and a more complicated conversation is a lot harder to have, since it's more nuanced. It's less black and white of like, no, you're wrong and stupid, which I don't think is a very good approach in general.
A lot of Muslims as well, kind of. Sorry, Dave.
Sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say a lot of Muslims as well, they kind of know that like Western whiteys don't know anything about it, and they can leverage that by just bringing out certain things that they know you won't have a clue about. Like one thing they'll say there's no that the Quran is written in the best style of Arabic, and it's just this wonderfully literary and it's absolutely clear and so on. But when you actually start to read it, there's all sorts of weird problems in it, and it's, I mean, again, at the risk of getting shot, I guess. I mean, they insist that Allah wrote that book.
Sure.
Oh, okay.
No, it wasn't written by guys who were like working for Allah. Allah wrote that book. So it's perfect. Every single line of it is perfect. Yeah.
Well, we've never heard that in the West.
Well, I mean, all right, fair enough. But like
word and all that.
Have you read it?
Right?
Have you read the Quran?
Have I read the Quran?
Yeah.
Oh no. I've read bits and pieces. I have around here, but
I know that there's.
It's one of the most boring. Yeah.
Well, it keeps saying the same thing over and over again. Yeah.
I know that there's a big difference between what you would find between sort of like the Muslim approach to these kinds of conversations and the Christian approach to these conversations, because you're dealing with people who are outside of the culture versus in the culture, and a lot of modern Christianity lets a lot of this kind of stuff go. They're like, well, it was inspired by God, not written literally by God. So,
well, another reason why we have, so much of a vested interest as being, attackers of Christianity is because we have Christian nationalists. Our Supreme Court is packed with a bunch of, fucktards.
Catholics, Roman Catholics in particular.
That are baked in religion. They're baked in all this bullshit. I mean, until we get some, and I'm not saying that there isn't, Islamic nationalists or even Islamic nationalists in America. Until they become more of a, a threat to the legislation, I don't think you're going to have much of a,
Well, there's a complicating factor with Muslims as well, is that Muslims are they're discriminated against in a number of places. Pretty much everywhere they're not running the gaff, they're being discriminated against, which makes it difficult because you don't want to say or do anything that leads to people being hurt.
That's right.
So in my blog, in my atheist blog, I have the same position all the time. I say I will defend the human rights of Muslims very violently, and I will also trash Islam, sometimes in the same post. Because wherever you go, Muslims are being like, in China, they're rounding them up into concentration camps. In India, they just have the occasional massacre. In Burma, they're burning them out of not Burma, what do they call it now? Myanmar, they're burning them out of their villages. In lots of places, they're being treated badly,
So, as atheists, what is a good or bad approach? Because you've got like these atheist groups and these atheist communities, and in some ways they're very exclusive and kind of cliquey, and in other ways they're very not that. But when they're not that, they seem to be almost more disorganized. So, as atheists, what do we do?
Well, I definitely would like to say that one thing I would like to see a lot more of out of atheists, and a lot of atheists call themselves, I'm not going to say it's a 100% Venn diagram, but an awful lot of atheists I know, myself included, call themselves humanists as well. Mm-hmm. And I think that there's this thing called the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and it's not even ratified in every country in the world yet. And that thing's been kicking around for 80 years and is very much a platform that I think that we could get behind in terms of good without God. Well, there ain't no God in there, but there's an awful lot of good in it. And I don't see a lot of people, pushing that kind of agenda. We do talk about or mention human rights, but in terms of, coalescing around something that would actually be a productive, helpful thing for the world, that would not just be, fuck all you all believe in God, you're a bunch of idiots. Hey, here's something we could be doing, should be doing, thinking about, in terms of platforming something. I don't know. I wanted to throw that out as an idea, see what people thought.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I think we should go around the panel and each give an answer and then kind of coalesce, because I think that's
shit. I forgot my homework at home.
Well, that's okay. You're going last. Write it up now. Dave, what do you think?
Damn it.
I think one of the problems is there's a big thing within the atheist community itself of denying that such a community exists. Like, there seems to be this sort of hesitancy to organize because, well, organization is for organized religion. We're atheists. We're all unique individuals. And so people don't want to get into that. And I think the atheist community kind of needs to get over that and actually start organizing. There are those that do it, don't get me wrong, but, there is
without
a big
necessarily
thing in the atheist community.
Without necessarily going so far as, what was that Atheist Plus thing that was going on?
Oh God, no!
Right?
Yeah, no. Skip all that.
We don't
Skip
want
all
that.
Yeah.
Oh no! Nobody liked
And I think
Atheism
that's
Plus.
I think that's one thing people look at, when they hear the term organized atheists, and they go, "Oh shit." So I don't think we want to go that far. But that's why again I was thinking something a lot more basic that kind of everybody could.
Glad you cleared that up.
Barry, what do you got for us? What do you think?
I think, sorry, it's midnight where I am, so I'm not sure how much of this is real right now.
What do you mean? This is like your time. This is like the time where you flourish. Yeah, there you go.
That's true, yeah. I think in every country, as I said, atheism is going to mean something different, either because of the consequences or because of what they define as atheism, or more particularly, perhaps, when it comes to organized atheism, what they're reacting against. Because organized atheism will always be reacting against something. They're not really promoting anything. I mean, they can, like, I know that's what Dave would like, because you just said, like, or Chris even, they were saying we should promote these proper values and so on. But any organized atheist anywhere are usually reacting against some religious bullshit somewhere. And you do need to organize on the ground if you want to see change in your country at any level. It's far more powerful than voting. If you organize on the ground, that's proper democracy. And an atheist group or a secular group could be a really good way to lobby government and try and get opinions moving on things. But it will be completely idiosyncratic on a per country basis. And I don't know how to get any of that moving globally. You'd have to stay flexible and close to the ground if you're going to organize globally.
Seamus, what do you got?
I kind of think you have to shift it if you're going to do something like what Chris is talking about. I think you have to change the actual verbiage of it. It has to be something like a humanist movement or something, because you're going to have the whole atheist or trying to herding cats kind of argument, because that is part of the argument, because you have whatever American atheist has become, which is a whole can of worms in itself, and then you have atheists with guns. I mean, atheists for liberty or whatever the hell they're called, right?
Oh, Tom Sheedy.
So,
you mean Tom
yeah,
Sheedy,
yeah. Little Tommy,
Aww.
little ragged youth. Hitler.
Oh,
you got,
okay, all right.
You got all these extremes that
right.
just want to separate each other, and then you have all the other groups that are in between that have their own clique issues. I mean, unfortunately or fortunately, I mean, for YouTubers, you have groups like Atheist Alliance International and ACA that will give you plenty of episodes just to go on the nonsense that goes on within them, because they have all the drama. The problem is we can't get out of our own way, and a lot of this has to do with the verbiage and the nonsense. I mean, I'm glad Chris brought up Atheist Plus, because that, what the hell? you get things like that just, and I'm sure a lot of these things are grounded in well-meaning intentions,
Sure.
but then it
they
gets
always
boycotted by other. Yeah, then they get
That's the
boycotted by
problem.
something else. Yeah, then they get boycotted by something else. And,
super woke. Like, I'm the wokest person
Yeah.
on our podcast there. Seamus will tell me I'm very left-wing and very pro-everything. So, and I still think Atheist Plus is a stupid idea.
Right.
I think there's something to be said, though. Okay, so if we're looking at kind of shifting the concept, is that it's no longer about atheists should organize as atheists. It sounds like everybody here is agreeing that we should organize as humans for humans, and atheism is just who you happen to be as part of that group.
Well,
Yeah,
I think
because
that's
you have
yeah.
groups like. Sorry, go ahead.
I want to say. I want to say. I think you're spot on there, because I think what's happening is like, for example, I'm talking humanism, so it's like, oh, we'll go off with the humanists, right? Atheism is such a broad brush because as also noted, it's this reactionary. Well, it's a lack of belief in a thing. How do you organize around that? It's not an invalid question, because it is like herding cats. I've been doing it for years. I was even on the board of the local atheist group here, and it's just, oh my God. So you end up with subgroups. Our group here is a sort of an umbrella group, the Secular Hub, for a lot of different things, from Freedom from Religion Foundation to the Recovering from Religion group meetings. And they have their own alcohol anonymous thing, and they've got a kids thing, and they've got a Boy Scout thing. So you've got this broad umbrella that fits a lot of different things. And so maybe the conversation breaks down at, well, there isn't any one thing atheist communities are ever going to agree on or rally around, but maybe these subgroups are things that we can sort ourselves by somehow.
I feel like the only thing that atheists can really rally around is freedom of or from religion in any country across the world.
Well, freedom from a belief in God, I suppose. But even there, it's kind of like, okay, well, which God? Well, all the gods. Okay, cool. But all religion then? What about spirituality? Because that's not God.
Right.
Well, I know that you talk a lot about how Scientology kind of functions as how they're tax exempt and some of their practices. So and I think one of the things we brought up last time you were on, we were talking about, does freedom of religion include the sort of abusive practices?
Yeah.
Which would
exactly.
which would start falling under humanism at that point.
That's right. That's right. Because you could be an atheist and be a Scientologist. Those two things are not incompatible.
Right.
So,
well, it wouldn't just be about like freedom from. There'd be knock-on effects that would be associated with that. Like in my country, we finally legalized divorce in 1995, I think. Damn. And the divorce ban, the illegality of divorce was directly connected to the fact that the influence of the Catholic Church.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it has other knock-on effects. They're not directly mentioning God or anything. Like, divorce has nothing to do with God. But they would... That's that. And there's a lot of things in the Irish laws that were like that. There was a gay marriage ban, which was obviously associated with religion. It doesn't have to be. I'm sure there's lots of people who weren't religious and didn't like the idea of two guys doing whatever they're doing. But it's definitely connected
what are they doing
to picking out interior stuff at the homeware store, I guess.
Is it a reaction against? Is it? I'm wondering, and just amongst our group here, is it a reaction against religion itself existing, or is it a reaction against abuses or overreach from organized religion as we see it impinging on our rights or ability to lead our lives?
I think most atheists just want to be left, especially in organized atheism. I think most organized atheists just want to be left alone.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Like, I'd like to see a time.
I want to go burn down the local church because I hate it so much.
Yes.
I don't think it's that.
Give a shit. Yeah. Although, when I was in Kosovo, 6 o'clock in the morning, every bloody morning, this guy going, every bloody morning. And not just that, but there's a mosque every 500 yards. And you have to do, every guy and every imam has to do this thing at 6 o'clock every morning. And they were not doing it in the same key.
Oh. See, that's the problem. They need to be
It's
more
not-
organized.
Yes, I'm not. Oh my God! Have you ever tried to get Muslims organized? You talk to one Muslim, right? I love Islam so much. I mean, talking about it, not Islam, because when you talk to one Muslim,
Right.
you're like, oh, okay, so I have an idea what Islam is now. And I talk to another Muslim for another Muslim country, completely different picture of what you're expected to do, what Allah thinks. All this bunch of stuff is just fantastic.
I have a side question.
Just like Christianity, I might say.
Yeah.
Yes,
yep,
but in the West, we're encouraged to think of Islam as a monolithic thing where like
Oh,
people
totally.
just do everything the same way, and they're not. They're all
That's right.
different. Some of them don't give a shit about various elements of it, and some of them are very insistent on various elements of it. And most
That's
of them
right.
most of them do not mind me asking very difficult questions. I'll say that for them. They don't mind me asking questions, so that's cool.
I have a
Yeah.
question. I have a quick question. This is a little bit of an aside, and do Muslim churches have choirs in some kind of related sense? No, that's not.
They don't
thing?
even have priests. They don't
No.
even have priests.
Sure, yeah,
they have a
that
guy
I
called
was
an
aware.
imam. An imam is not a priest. An imam is just a guy who says prayers, but he doesn't. Like, if you want to get married, like I spoke to a lot of Muslims, and if you want to get married, like I'd say, oh, so you go to the mosque to get married, and you think that's hilarious. You know, why the hell would you go to a mosque to get married? So the imam can give his blessing. I don't care what the imam says. Are you kidding me?
I
So,
have got to get Barry and Manya on at the same time because that's gonna be a whole. I'm just gonna listen to both of them just go off on like a whole side thing. So, Dave, I have a bit of a question that I kind of want to, because we got to rope it back into talking about atheism and sort of
sorry.
communities. Yeah, what the hell, Barry? Going off on tangents.
Sorry.
What do you think you're doing? It's almost that's why he's here.
I warned you. I told you not to have him on.
So, if we're going to talk about that, atheist communities end up with all these subheadings, and they end up with, you can have like an umbrella where you get secularist, like, or you could get humanist, or how do you educate people that are coming out of a religion to kind of all be on the same, like, on the same page to any kind of degree? Because I find that there's a lack of atheist communities sort of, they don't take the opportunity to sort of debrief someone coming out of a dogma.
Oh, Chesh,
That sort
breaking in
of
newbies
thing
is such a
happens.
pain.
That sort of thing happens at the social level more so than it's sort of administratively oversought.
Right.
Like, in other words, people come into the community, like we have coffee and community every Sunday.
Yeah.
In the morning, right? You can go down to the Secular Hub and hang out for a couple hours and just chill with people. And we have these round tables and people show up and newbies come.
And this
and
is
like, oh, hey, welcome.
Locally, right?
And then they come and we just accept them in the social circle, and that's where they start downloading if they have something to say.
Right.
It's kind of an informal process that way. And that's in fact how I found the atheist community. It was through a skeptics drinking group in Minnesota. So it has a lot of different avenues of approach, but I think that tends to be the approach, is people come in because they got a story to tell or something they want to say, at least if they are coming out of a religion coming in, you know what I mean?
Right.
There's other people who were never part of religion at all, and those are two very different sets of people as far as where they're coming from mentally, Dave,
what do you got for me? Do you think that, because I know like the philosophy around like you don't have morals anymore, basically, as far as like general understanding goes. If you're getting your morals from a book and you don't believe that book anymore, there's that question that floats around all the time of like, well, where do atheists get their morals from then? So how do you kind of help with that? And is there an easier approach that if more atheists were aware of, it might help?
I'm not sure about that. I think one of the problems...
typical philosopher.
Well, I think one of the problems in the atheist community is that philosophy is really maligned. So any mention of philosophy, it's just absolutely useless, whereas there's all this information within philosophy, and that kind of needs to be picked up. And I know people hate to say that there's atheist leaders, but there are bigger names within the community that have an impact, and it really kind of needs to have those people on board and promoting certain kinds of values.
I think that's fair. I think it's absolutely fair to say that there's no like be all, know all individual within atheist, like at the
Are you
umbrella, within the umbrella of atheism, but there's definitely within pockets and cliques. There's absolutely like the leader of that group for sure. There has to be, just with the
There
way.
are the way somebody and I came up with it is there are not atheist leaders. There are atheist celebrities, though.
Oh, that's a good way to put it. So
That's
like
right.
you got like the Tom Cruise of atheism.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, because you had your four horsemen, right? And then you have a Neil deGrasse Tyson, or you have a, a Seth Andrews. You have different people who definitely have built up followings around their atheism or about talking about it, but they're really celeb value. They're not like people are looking to them for leadership. And I think that also comes back down to the fact that there is such a resistance to any kind of structure in this group, in this community.
Yes.
Just no, not going to have it. No. And sometimes it's reasonable and sometimes it's not, but it sure is hard to organize around it.
Would it be?
I have to tell you, I'm a member of Atheist Ireland, right, which is one of the biggest Irish atheist organized groups, and we have our own little Facebook group. And I put a thing on about this herding cats thing and how difficult it is to organize anything with atheists. And I said, well, at least I said we can, agree that we all don't believe in a god, And some bastard put in, well, hang on now, underneath. And he was serious. He wasn't joking. He was serious. He was like, now wait a second, Jesus Christ, like, I mean, you can't even agree on that.
Oh, I kind of gave up on trying to get everybody to agree on anything once I realized I couldn't get people. There are a certain set of people who don't agree that we have to breathe.
Oh, right, the breatharian. Well, there are some people who think you
the
only have to.
breatharian.
They only have to breathe.
What? What is this?
Yeah.
Breatharians, they think you don't need food.
Every time I talk to you, Chesh, you light me on some other stupidity that I've been missing into the world. Like, okay, what? Oh, what is this now?
The breatharians are a cult. They think you don't need anything. You don't need to eat or drink anything. You only need to breathe air.
Yep, that's right.
Photosynthesis, my man. Evolution. We came from plants.
Yeah. So I gave up a while back on trying to get everybody on the same page.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's really just a matter of thinking with majorities at a certain point,
Okay, so there is a point where you have to be like, okay, listen, the group is open to anybody, but right, that like there are certain standards that have to be agreed upon by the group overall, right? So as atheists, because we don't have a book to tell us what those standards are, how do you, and I imagine this is going to be different depending on where you live. I think we've already agreed that no matter what, you're going to have a hard time dealing with atheists globally because it's different.
Well, you can ask about what is
Canada's out. Canada's out.
What? I'm sorry, you don't like free Slurpees at the 7-Eleven? What the fuck?
No, I like.
You can ask what is morality, right? Try to define morality, and you'll be there all day. Dave will have like hours and hours of material on that, I'm sure. But if you want to crack it down, you could say morality is just like a series of conversations you have, which you are forced to have when you're living in a community with other people, and you decide how you want to live as a society in a community. And you can just leave it there, and that doesn't involve God or religion or anything. And even the religious people, that would suit them too.
Right.
They might not like it. They might say, oh, morality is from God and so on. But I'm sure, like, I don't know this for a fact, but I'm sure even the bonkers stuff, like that's down as morality in the Bible and in the Quran and so on, would originally have been something to do with community standards in their communities. I can't.
Social. You're talking about social evolution.
Right.
Yeah, because there's stuff there that's agricultural advice in the Bible, and I guess that was important.
Yeah, at the time.
Well, the morality question's not a small one for sure. It's certainly a real big problem. And one thing the atheist world has not delivered up in any way is a substantive answer to the question of, well, how do you teach morality? And I don't mean how do you be good without God, because individually everybody thinks they're good. But how do you teach people how to be good without God? That's a bit of a tougher question.
So much easier when you have a perfect ideal to refer to. It's so much easier when you externalize it to a perfect ideal and say, just do that.
Well, it is. And there's also the fact that they've got the oldest, and let's face it, some of the best stories. And stories are how you teach people things.
That's fair.
right? You can't get away
They
from
don't
that.
have any of that.
Right?
They didn't tell any of the man from Nantucket stories though, and those are pretty damn.
I'm
good.
sorry?
I mean,
The man from
the man from Nantucket. You know.
Do you want me to make up some stories?
Because here's the problem. Here's the problem you have to solve, right? Is it's not matter of teaching you or me morality. It's teaching Trailer Park Joe morality. It's teaching people who can't read and write morality.
Right. I
How
feel
do
like
you do that?
I feel like there's something to
know?
be said for, can atheists as a group, in a way, group loosely, work together to kind of come to a majority agreeing on minimum standards. So if the minimum standard is the 10 Commandments for the Bible, let's say, for example, not that that's true, just for an example, can there be a discussion amongst a large number, although it won't be everyone, of atheists that will be able to agree on what this set standard is? And can that be then taught in general?
Nope.
I don't think it's going to work like that.
Nope. Ain't gonna work like that. Because it does break down culturally. It does break down geographically. It does break down in different areas, right?
Sure, yeah.
Different folks
Well,
have
not just
different
that.
strokes. They got different needs, and they
But
come
not-
at
yeah,
life
but not
from
just that,
very
but-
different ways. You know.
They come no. Everything Chris said. Additionally, it's not flex. You need to keep it flexible.
Yep.
And if you say, look,
That's
this is a minimum standard for atheism, and something happens in 20 years, some new information we get makes it silly, you're going to have to, how are you going to explain to people that everything you've been teaching them for the last 20 years isn't, we were wrong about that, like.
Hey, are you
You have to
talking
stay
shit on the founding
flexible.
fathers again?
Well,
It has to be
if
an
I-
evolving conversation, and they have to understand it's an evolving understanding, and we're just getting closer, and we're doing the best we can with the information we have at the time. But people hate that, because our brains are designed to say this, this, and this. Not sort
That's
of ish
right,
this,
which
kind
is
of
why
that,
that
and a little
doesn't-
bit the other.
That's right. Which is why it's not going to work that way.
So
Because people's heads
Well, then you're
explode
stuck
too
with a bunch
easily
of. Well,
about
then
it.
you're stuck with a series of narratives. You're just stuck with a series of narratives.
Yes.
But narrative isn't. But a narrative isn't something that's external. A narrative is an action you are doing to stuff that happens.
Yeah.
Stuff that happens doesn't have any inherent meaning or narrative.
Not until we provide it. And what?
Yeah, it's
and,
an
and
action.
if
It's something you
morality
do
is
to it.
anything, it's a set of agreed upon narratives of how you should act. Oh, this happens. Here's the narrative line you get onto, right? Oh, I
Right.
won't pick up a stick and kill this guy. I'll talk to him
Sure.
instead, right?
That's why we have
Essentially-
16 Avengers
Provided
movies.
to you. Well, I'm sorry.
That's why we have 16 Avengers movies.
it is not.
Look,
Don't understand that in
do you, wait,
response to
do
my
you remember?
comment.
Do you
but
remember the movie Logan?
Yes.
It was a lovely, lovely movie about an old superhero dying. Right? It was fantastic. And there was one bit in it
Oh
where
shit!
Patrick Stewart.
Spoilers.
Oh please! Patrick Stewart is thrown in the back of the car, and Wolverine is driving him around. And there's this car crash, and Patrick Stewart says, and Logan says, "Oh, there's a car crash." And Patrick Stewart says, "Whatever." And Logan says, "Oh, don't worry, someone will come along." And Patrick Stewart said, "Someone has come along." And Logan just kind of says, "Oh,
Oh
right,
shit, it's me.
maybe." Oh shit, it's me.
Yeah.
Okay,
I
well,
think people can learn things from superhero movies.
first
Like,
off,
very
Of course
serious
they
things.
can.
Logan.
Of course they. That's sort of the where I'm coming from on this with the
Right.
And
with
people
the story
respond to
thing
that.
is, that's what people respond to. There has to be emotional components. It has to appeal to them emotionally as well as rationally. Otherwise it doesn't work. It just doesn't work.
Well, there are.
As far
It's
as teaching
not like
things.
there are no rules. It's not like there's no rules to logic. It's not like there are no rules to sort of like education. There are easier and more difficult ways to teach people things, or more moral ways to teach things to people than like it's not good to hit kids with sticks in general. We can mostly agree on that. So if you can set these standards, I mean, Sam Harris has that one standard that he likes to throw out of like, good is what is the best possible option for the most, like the highest number of people. Right? So if you have like these kinds of generalized standards, you can then, it's not like you're going to be able to be like, boom, this is what everybody does. But if you start from like the bottom, keeping in mind that compared to atheists, the Catholic Church has decades upon decades upon decades of years to build this foundation, right? So if it should maybe atheists be looking at what the Catholic Church did to lay that foundation in the first place, and getting access to people. Okay.
Sam Harris here, he has a formula for whatever is a good action or whatever. Any formula is going to fail. It's not going to work, because anytime anybody's come up with a formula, it's not worked. Anytime anybody's come up with a final solution for anything, it's generally been a terrible idea. Like Immanuel Kant thought, as Rowlands will tell you, Immanuel Kant came up with this thing called the categorical imperative, which he thought was fantastic, would figure out if anybody's action was morally good or whatever, and all you had to do was pretend like this is the way everybody would act in that situation. And if everybody would act in that situation, it's still a good thing, fine, off you go. That doesn't work. It just sounds like it works. Because it doesn't, for one thing, it doesn't take any account of competing imperatives. It just assumes everything's in a single isolated series of isolated blocks. But there's other problems with it as well that Dave can tell you about, because he's the guy with the degree.
Sure, but we're talking about a generalization. Like
that is a generalization. The categorical imperative is a generalization.
But it's
that's the problem with it.
Right. However, what I'm saying is I'm not saying that whatever you came up with would be perfect in every situation. What I'm talking about is a generalized option, right? Because when you go from being religious and having something like the Ten Commandments, and you go to that is no longer applicable, but is it though? Can you replace the Ten Commandments with a general standardized option?
If you were going to, it would have to be a series of if-then statements. That's the only way it would possibly work.
Yeah.
Well, which is why you come down to the final answer of morality, which is context is everything.
Right.
If you don't have the context of a thing, there are so few broad rules that always apply everywhere, every time. There's so few. I think they, less than the number of fingers I got. There really aren't that many of them. Context always matters, and yet you have the challenge of people don't think in nuance so well. So you're going to have to put some arbitrary standards down where you're just going to have to say, this is how it is. And this is actually the exact calculation every single parent, at least a good parent, goes through. Is like, oh shit, how do I get this across? And yet, when it's time to go, it's time to go. Or if I'm not going to let you touch the stove, I'm not going to let you touch the stove. And I'm not about consulting your willingness or trying to educate you into it. I'm just not going to let you do it.
Right.
And that's the balance of those two things that we constantly are struggling with when it comes to the moral questions. But there's a sort of a pretense or pretend idea that this authority end of things doesn't exist or is always bad or always wrong. And it's not. We call it good parenting when it's done right. So it's a balance of these two things, I think.
Dave, what do you think? You're the philosopher here.
I wouldn't go that far.
Okay, Dave, enough of you.
That's about it.
He wouldn't go as far as to say here. What is location? What is place?
Oh, God.
What do we mean by what? And what do we mean by here? Just go all full. What do you mean by meaning?
And fuck you.
Yeah, exactly. I think one of the things when it comes to the moral thing is that, like Chris says, morality is really complicated. There is no one sort of thing that's ever going to work. But I think within the atheist community, we like to promote critical thinking. And if you think about something like virtue ethics, that's about thinking through each kind of interaction that you have and what would be the best result and coming up with what would the good person do. Of course, good is defined as human flourishing, like what makes the world a better place. And I think that would probably be something of a better fit for the atheist community because it takes on board all the various ideas that go on within the atheist community.
And that's why I offered up that universal declaration as a sort of a baseline of okay, if we need some arbitrary standard of what we can agree on as to what's good, that's a good place to start. It sure as hell beats the Ten Commandments. And it just so happens that oddly enough, I'm kind of familiar with it because of my background. Because super ironically, might I mention, the Church of Scientology has produced. I can't believe I'm even saying this, but it's true. They have produced some of the best PSAs for kids teaching human rights anywhere that anybody's ever done. They're short, they're entertaining, they're to the point, and they have nothing to do with Scientology. They're just little PSAs. And it chokes me to say that, but I kind of put it out there because I want somebody else to please get on board and do this, not the Scientologists, since they're the ones, you know, that just present that as a smokescreen so they can violate people's human rights every day of the week.
The Sesame Street version of Scientology.
Yeah, well, it would be nice if there was a human rights organization out there that actually knew how to communicate about human rights. And I think we could, center conversations about morality, good and bad, and that kind of thing around that kind of a platform rather than centering it around a Bible.
I vote Seamus for Oscar.
With the Bible, So you got to have something there. You got to put something there, because if you don't have anything, there's nothing for people to land.
Yeah, because you go from a social group that has a very rigid standard to now you have to figure it out yourself. Good luck. But we don't.
Welcome to your existential crisis.
Right, exactly. And so now we're at the point of if we're at the point of deconversion, do you then is it instead of being beneficial because again, we're talking about atheist communities. As atheist communities, do you then, instead of coming up with a set standard of what your morality is, do you instead replace that with an education on how to form your own instead?
That would be a better option.
I like that. Yeah, I like that a lot.
Something like John Rawls' Veil
Theory of Justice
is an idea.
So you can come up with like sort of a philosophical curriculum for that, but maybe you don't call it philosophy because then everybody gets all about it.
Well, I mean, if I might make an analogy,
no, call it John Rawls' Theory of Justice. They'll love it.
They love it, yeah. Or Veil of Ignorance, because it makes them feel like they're overcoming ignorance.
Go ahead, Chris. Go on.
There's this thing that we push and love and talk about a lot and cherish, this thing called critical thinking. And it's a set of principles, right? It kind of sits there, and it's these, kind of rhetoric and logic and reason and these various things we throw in there. And you know who absolutely positively runs with that and thinks that they're amazing critical thinkers? Flat earthers.
Oh, God.
Right? Conspiracy theorists, right?
Yeah.
You will not find people who are absolutely sold on the beauty of their own critical thinking more than QAnon followers or supporters. So it's not enough to offer some good ideas. You've got to put it in a context that people will go, oh, this is what you want me to do, or it won't really land the way that it should. They'll take it and run with it and do shit you had no idea they could do with it.
So we need a
1 year of philosophy.
So we need to hack the Q drops, is what you're saying, right?
Hey, that's what I'm saying. That's exactly what I'm saying. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
That's what I'm saying.
Let's do a squeal injection into the
If
Q
only.
Don't mind me. I just broke my camera. I'm still here. Don't panic. So should we just get like the atheists to hire the Scientologists then to make little PSAs?
No, please don't. Please don't do that.
I remember when they were making Sesame Street, the idea was they went to what they did was they looked at Saturday morning cartoons that were aimed at children, and they took everything in that and put it into education instead. So they had nothing lasts longer than 25 seconds. Lots of colorful characters jumping around the screen, little songs saying the same thing 3 times, and they took all these things and put it onto I love to count 1 league under the sea, 2 leagues under the sea, right? They took all that same logic and ran with it, and it's just a beautiful show. Sesame Street is just a beautiful show.
Do you guys like VeggieTales?
What are you saying? VeggieTales?
Yeah.
Never watched it.
You lost me at veggie, so no.
You guys didn't like VeggieTales? So I loved VeggieTales, and
what's VeggieTales?
It's like a kids TV show that teaches you like life lessons and Bible verses or whatever. And they have like 2 movies or whatever. And then they got bought out, and now they're on Netflix, and it's garbage. It's so bad.
And now it's Meat Tales.
Like, not that there weren't problems with it before, But like
Is it like a dark 13 episode arc?
the entertainment value that like you get out of as a kid from like those types of shows, it like is there value to just kind of ripping them off?
Yes, also, yeah, obviously. Like Minecraft, not Minecraft, the little Minesweeper game they give you with Windows 3.1. Do you remember Minesweeper?
Yeah, oh yeah.
You click on the little mines. Do you know why they sent that with Windows? Why it was packaged with Windows? It's not because it's a lot of fun. They packaged it with Windows, because especially Windows 3.1, because they realized that a lot of people would never have used a mouse before and wouldn't know how to do it. So if you fire up Minesweeper, you are being trained on how to left click, how to right click, how to get the kind of motion control necessary to be able to use a mouse correctly in all the applications. And all you're doing is playing a game and you have no fucking idea you're doing it. If you play 5 games of Minesweeper, you have no idea you've been trained how to use a mouse. All you've been doing is playing a game. It's fantastic. And nowadays I think we could rob that idea and couldn't we? And do everything as a series of things that have a dopamine hit at the end.
Gamifying education, I think, is something that's been talked about for a really, really long time.
It must be possible.
I think it is for most stuff.
I mean, isn't that what social media is? I mean, just big dopamine chase too. I mean,
yeah, but like that's not helping anyone.
Well, yeah, I know, but I mean, well, yeah, sell ads.
All right, shut the show down, guys. We're not helping anybody. Thanks. We did get a couple of super chats that have some questions buried in them. So we did get one from Twitwit that said, "But why do atheists have to do anything?"
Yeah, that's funny.
Well, we have to in my country. We have to in my country because the religion keeps trying to fuck us over. We have to organize against religious stupidity.
In America. Yeah. There's a lot of stuff going on in America.
Twitwit is living.
I think the answer, the short answer is we live here and we'd like to keep living here under better circumstances.
Divorce was against the law until 1995 in my country. Blasphemy was a real thing until maybe 2015 or 2018, or it must be 2018. Gay marriage was illegal until we were the first country in the world to legalize gay marriage by public vote. Yay! Until 2015, and abortion was illegal until 2018. So yeah, we need organized down with religion. So if you want down with religious influence on me, do what you want with yourself, you know. But like we need to organize against that, and you might as well call it atheism if what you're doing is fighting against religious influence.
Well, is that atheism or is that the Freedom from Religion Foundation?
There would be lots of crossover, yeah.
Yeah, because I believe that there are even theists who get on board with the Freedom from Religion Foundation.
Yeah.
Because if your goal is, hey, I want these people out of my public life, right? I'm just kind of harping on that point of all the subgroups, right? They're all there. They all exist. Right. They're there to be part of. And yet you'll find plenty of atheists who want nothing to do with that. You know,
there were also atheists who would have voted against all those referendums for whatever reason.
Yeah,
like the divorce referendum was a shock to me in 1995. It was the first referendum I voted in, and the just for divorce, it went over the top by 0.3%.
That's close.
That was the victory margin. It was roughly half and half, which means half the country showed up. Half of the people showed up to the ballot box in my country to say, not only do I personally not believe in divorce, but you can't have one either. That was the level we were at in 1995.
Does anybody else find it ironic that there's atheist groups out there that are trying to be freedom from religion, and their goal is to put more, like, ultimately put more atheists in politics? Because isn't that adding religion to politics? It's just a non-religion to politics? Like, you're still basing it off of, like, your religious one way or another, right?
It falls under the heading of religious activity, I suppose you could say, or anti-religious activity.
Yeah, that would be,
if you want to include the negatives with the positives, right? But yeah, I don't know that it goes further than that particularly. I think that there should be more atheists looking at getting into politics. We're an underrepresented demographic and politically. I wouldn't be opposed to that, you know. But good luck getting elected. I actually interviewed a guy who ran for Congress as an atheist and didn't make it. Okay,
so if we're gonna say that I think we all agree then that philosophical education needs to be, and like critical thinking needs to be put into place. I think everybody agreed that when it comes to deconversion, instead of replacing the 10 Commandments, we educate people on how to create their own.
Yes.
Whether that be through PSAs
I'm not sure I totally agree with that.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
As stated.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, just what I was saying before, you have to substitute something. You can't just substitute, oh, you go figure it out.
Well, that's what I mean. Like add an
work.
add an education.
Right.
So instead of replacing 10 Commandments with 10 Commandments, you replace it with education on how to figure it out yourself, so that way you can come to your own
that's what I'm
conclusions.
saying. That's too high level.
Trailer
Park Joe ain't gonna figure it out in the way you think he is.
All right,
You got to put some stuff there to guide that context, or it's going to go off the rails faster than you could possibly imagine. It's bizarre what people do when you just give them the rope and let them run, you know?
Right.
So there has to be some standards. And that's where that arbitrary thing, that's what I was arguing about earlier with the thing with the parents is, the parents do their best to teach kids to think for themselves. But when it's time to go to bed, it's time to go to bed, damn it. And, well, why does it have to be? Because I said so. That's why.
You do hit that
as
line.
A parent, what that feels like, you know? Yeah. So it's like, there is that time too. And that's where we do have to decide, okay, well, we're going to have to spell this out for some people because they're just not capable of spelling it out for themselves for whatever reason. It's not even a value judgment. It's just a truth, you know? Got to deal with that.
So it seems to me like the ultimate kind of conversation we're getting to through this discussion so far has been that atheist organizations should just pony onto or pony from the humanist organizations.
What do you mean pony?
Oh, sorry, Canadianism. Borrow from or get onto or like jump on that wagon of like, hey, humanism has come up with these standards and atheism should adopt those standards. Or join those humanist organizations.
Well, I think you'll have more success with that, right? Which is pretty much how the dust settles anyway. Is like people kind of settle into their cliques and groups, and for me, for my money, being part of an active atheist community with a building and a place to go and a sort of an umbrella organization that I've been very much a part of, contributing to and running. I think that would be if we're looking for first steps or something to establish everywhere, even that much would be great. And then let people settle themselves as to, are they freedom from religion? Are they humanists? Are they just casual members who don't want to get into activism, but they want to call themselves atheists and meet with other atheists socially? Let's have that be one of the activities. That's what's working here for us. And I would encourage that everywhere. I think that's a great first place to go.
Do you guys think there's a really big difference between online atheist groups and in real life atheist groups?
Yes. The behavior online is a lot more extreme than what you see in real life.
So
that's been my experience.
That's in a lot of situations though too, right? Got a lot of keyboard warriors out there and edgelords.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, the edgelords! Oh no.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've never met an edgelord who pulled that shit in real life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Okay, so who's the edgelord of our conversation? Because I'm voting Barry.
Oh, totally Barry.
Oh, well, I put up a tweet once in specific response to this type of ideology leveraged against me, you bastards. I put up a tweet once and I said, I only want people who know me in real life to answer this. And this is only people who know me in real life, not online. I said, am I the same on here as I am in real life? And they all said yes.
Yeah.
And Barry, that would require you leaving the house.
That's true. A girl once told me when I got to know you first, she said,
Shots fired.
She said, I thought you were just pretending to be like that. She said, online until I met you.
Oh, no.
Yeah. She said, my God, it's real, I think was her next sentence. But like, I get along with people. As long as they don't get in my way.
So do you think that there's a different kind of approach that online atheist communities can have that's more similar to maybe their in real life
No.
approach. So like Chris brought up that he has like these coffee get-togethers that are like in real life. You can kind of sit down. I know the ACA used to do like regular barbecues, or you could like anybody can come, you can sit down and have a conversation, and like nobody blows up and is like, I fucked your mom last week because it's not the internet. So
that's Atheist Plus.
Oh, right.
My mother's been dead for 20 years, so good luck.
So is there a way to kind of maybe bring that sense on, like,
No.
in certain...
You're expecting atheists to somehow counter the toxic effect of social media. Yeah, good luck.
I mean, sure, why not? There are absolutely groups of Christians, like Facebook group Christians, that are like sort of in what I think a lot of us would describe as an echo chamber, if that's the only place you're in. Because that's what makes something an echo chamber. Like, just having a group of people that agree with you in a space isn't an echo chamber. When that's the only place you're in, that's what is that defining line, at least one of them. So is it possible to create a space that kind of operates in the same way online as it does in real life?
Not for atheists, because atheist is essentially reactive.
And it's already
Is it though?
Yeah.
Well,
I mean,
I think if there was no
way
religious
we
bullshit, you
interact
wouldn't
now.
need atheists organized, would you? In any way.
Do you mean, Chesh, do you mean an online organization or an in real life organization?
Well, I don't see why it can't be both. Like, if you were to take an organization that exists, can you take what happens in real life and how like your organization or how the ACA existed with barbecues, and have like a general meeting once a month or whatever, once a week, and say, hey, come and hang out and chat with us, in this sort of like space that we're curating for this area, and kind of create that type of an atmosphere.
Yeah, we do that. We do that here in Denver. That's the secular hub I've been mentioning. They have one down in Free Thinkers of Arizona, I think, down in Phoenix or Mesa.
An
or something.
online
They have
group.
a place set up. Well, it's online and in real life. I mean, there are Facebook groups and Twitter accounts and stuff that you can rally around with that, or get on board and talk about and stuff. But there's also the in real life location you can go to, and that's what makes all the difference is the personal interaction and community. Community online is a shallow, it's a shadow of real life community.
To talk about community
That's what I
management.
like
Oh, shut up, Barry.
All right.
Community management is an entire like spiel when it comes online, right? Like, as soon as you try to like organize people and try to maintain like an atmosphere or a like quote unquote location, so like a Discord or whatever, it is a full-time job, and it is expensive to hire a community manager. But if you were to say maybe have like a handful of people that are, hey, listen, your job is to be generally online welcoming, and you don't engage in these particular discussions or things. So if somebody comes to troll the group, or if somebody comes to just be a shit disturber, your job is to ignore them. Is that maybe an approach you could take?
Basically, you're describing like a Facebook group, right?
Sure, yeah. It could be a Facebook group. It could be like a Twitter page that would maybe be, because they have Twitter circles and stuff now. But yeah, it would. I mean, would it be moderated? Because you can't really. There's only so much you can do to moderate a barbecue.
Well, there's only so much you have to do to moderate a barbecue. I mean, online, again, we all know things get riled up and things get turned up real quick, right? Because people don't necessarily know each other. That's the moderating influences. In real life, you're face to face with somebody. The real world consequences are literally right there.
Bars have bouncers. Yeah.
Online, it's consequence free unless you have moderation and somebody enforcing that.
Right.
And that's the harsh truth,
So you would essentially have a group that would have a set standard that would be like, these are the conversations we have. This is what we allow. This is what we don't allow. And the goal of the group would be to invest in the education of humanist morality.
You're a humanist.
That's a commitment.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to.
So,
Heard those cats.
right? Like, so in general, atheists should be lean towards humanism.
I think so, but that's my brand of atheism. I know
Right.
that everybody doesn't get on board with that. That twit person
Yeah.
commenting earlier sure as hell wasn't on board with that. You know, so
Yeah,
like,
right. Why should atheists
okay,
do
I
anything?
don't think that person is off the rails and wrong for thinking that as an atheist. It's just
Right.
not how they want to express their atheism.
And I think, well, I
Okay.
think that's a reasonable question, because we almost started off
Yeah.
with saying that, like, hey, atheists don't have a set moral code that they're required to follow based on being
right.
atheist. And so in that case, do you, instead of replacing it, do you focus on general education, and then do you just remove the
Oh, nice.
do you just remove the atheism part of the equation and say, hey, if this is your cup of tea, this is your cup of tea. You can join the Republican Party, you can join the Democratic Party, you can join the right, you can join the left, you can join the humanist societies, yada yada yada.
Yep.
Pick whatever you want outside of that, because, and this is what the ultimate question of these kinds of streams is, like, should there even be atheist fucking organizations? Like, why are you here?
Well, I think that they absolutely should be such organizations. I needed a place to land after I got out of Scientology. And if there hadn't been somebody organizing something for me to go do or get around to or meet people of like minds, my recovery and process from that would have been significantally different and taken a lot longer.
Yeah.
So,
Or Chris would have ended up in
just-
one of these Facebook groups for the Christians. The Christian Echo Chamber Facebook group.
What's the moms of Facebook subreddit?
Moms of Facebook plus Chris.
Aw.
Ow.
What's that?
What the hell?
He's saying that if you had nowhere else to land, you would have ended up in a Facebook, like in a Christian Facebook group.
Because they would have had the same structures and pace, but pointed in a different direction, I'm saying.
I mean, possibly, I wasn't particularly pro-Christian coming out of there, but
That's
I'm
fair.
just saying, it's that if you have a community there of people that can act as a support network just by its very existence, I think that's important. So to answer the question, should we have them? Yes, I think we should. Are they going to be contentious and disagreeable, and will people have squabbles and drama? Yeah, welcome to humanity. You know what I mean? There is no such group that doesn't. So, of course, we should have them. Part of the fun of them is having discussions like this. Well, what should we do?
Right, like, if we're going to say the atheist organization should exist, what are the goals of said organization? And I think that there can be more than one for different organizations.
I think so. And even for the same organization, because again, my model here is, the best I've seen is an umbrella group that can accommodate lots of different ideas and activities within it, and it's all under this umbrella of secular atheist activities, and nobody argues against that. It's not like anybody's coming in and going, what the hell are the Freedom from Religion Foundation people doing here? That's, nobody does that. It's obvious why they're there, but it doesn't mean you have to be part of it. You can still be part of this group without having to go there. So that's the welcoming, open part that I think we need to really be focused on at this stage of the game.
That makes
So
sense.
you're in Denver?
I am.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
What's with that dismissive tone, Seamus?
What the
Yeah,
hell, bro?
exactly.
No.
You're in Denver?
No.
Yeah. Well,
Denver,
that's the end of that conversation, I guess.
Okay. Thanks for sharing that. Denver,
Yeah,
huh?
do you have
Okay.
you got integrity weed? Yeah. Yeah.
So there needs, so excluding the education factor, because clearly I think we all agreed that there needs to be more education when it comes to philosophy in general and critical thinking in general.
Yeah.
Just education in general would be nice in America, but yeah.
We'd like to have some education here, please. Thanks.
I'd
Education,
like to see
please.
philosophy streamed in primary schools.
Yeah.
I don't know. Dave, what do you think?
About atheist Yeah, sorry.
Well, we've talked about like the group. He's like just sitting over there, like I'm just vibing with the conversation.
Yeah,
Are you
yeah.
sure you're not in Denver?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's like 1 a.m. You know, I'm old, so I'm half asleep here.
Oh boy. So when it
She
comes
just rolled with the
to
Hunter S. Thompson, man.
when it comes to like these degrees of education and degrees of groups and whether or not atheist communities should exist, I think that Chris made a really good point that they should in some degree, and that if I'm understanding correctly, maybe some of the groups that do exist have kind of overreached what their job actually is.
Yeah, I mean, I think these like organizations are important for many of the reasons that Chris mentioned, because you have people coming out of religion and they need support structures. You have like creation, people trying to push creation in schools. You have, like in Ireland, religion dominating and causing all kinds of problems.
Yes.
Yeah. So organizations are needed to fight this, and if you have a whole bunch of different banners, then people can find slots they want to and feel passionate about and go against. But there are certain things that most atheists will agree on, that critical thinking is important, education is important, and all that. So these organizations can promote these kind of things. So I think they are important, even if there's lots of atheists who don't want to be organized.
Can you have a position on improving education while avoiding politics?
Not in this country.
Not in America?
Mm-mm.
And
I
is
mean,
there...
you should be able to.
Yeah.
You should be able to, but not in the public. Let me say, not in the public forum. You could definitely go all in on education or work on that or be an activist in that and not touch politics in real life. You could go do that. But in terms of bringing it online or trying to rally support or stuff like that, you're going to get all kinds of politics, especially lately with all the school board nonsense and everything else going on in the South right now with all that.
Right.
They've definitely politicized it.
Interesting.
I think it's going to be difficult to avoid politics if you're doing anything at all that you intend to influence public policy with.
Yeah,
because that's what politics
exactly.
is. Different types of people influencing public policy. There's no way to avoid being political. In fact, if you hear somebody say, oh, that was too political, or you've politicized a thing, that can sometimes itself be a political thing to say, because you're just telling people you have privilege. Yeah.
Wherever you see an association of power, you'll find politics. And if you're trying to organize people around something or trying to influence other people, that's an attempt at influencing power. So it'll be political.
So in that case, does that mean maybe the atheist communities online in particular are looking at too big of, they're biting off sort of more than they can chew? In that instead of focusing on maybe changing educational policies, they as a group provide a degree of education within just their group. It's not like a degree. It's not an official education. It is just something that's like, hey, listen, here's a fucking pamphlet. Learn about critical thinking.
I think both are kind of important. Because if it's going on in schools and there's like creation being pushed into schools, you're going to need that sort of political power within that sphere. So that is needed. But I think also having, like you said, organizations that offer kind of education, that's probably just as important, especially when it comes to things like critical thinking. There's like an attitude in among atheists that they're already very good critical thinkers, so they don't need to learn critical thinking. And I think people need to kind of change that.
Yeah, we do.
Oh, sorry, Chris laughing about that got me. I was doing so good, and I was on board, and then he started laughing. I was done.
Yeah.
Tell us how you feel, Chris.
Well, you know, I've got strong opinions about critical thinking and what makes good critical thinking, but that's just because of my own journey. You know what I mean? I can't lay that on everybody. I've just seen a lot of the dark side of critical thinking. When I talked about flat earthers and stuff like that, I've you go down those rabbit holes and you end up having face-to-face conversations with people who are absolutely convinced that they are the best critical thinker who ever lived, or at least that they are competent critical thinkers while they're coming up with solutions like flat Earth and QAnon. And you're like, wow, man, that's fascinating that you believe that. And when you follow the logic train, here's the part that kind of, was like, oh shit, is if you follow the logic train and you look at how they're applying fallacies and stuff, they're not far off. It's not like the mechanics of their thinking process is so radically different from how you'd find a right solution. It's just they have these held down arbitrary ideas that must be true. And so their critical thinking gets locked up on that. Like they can never believe anything NASA has to say. So it locks up.
Right.
But then you come over to atheist side, if I might get critical on our side for a second, and you see people do the same kind of arbitrary thing. Well, if it's in the Bible, it's invalid. I don't have to look at it, read it, or consider it in any way, shape, or form. And you go, well, okay. But you're not going to understand all these people who do take the Bible seriously if you don't look and be willing to consider what is it they see in this thing. If you really want to do that work, you gotta not have those arbitrary values holding down your thinking.
Right.
I have yet to run into too many critical thinkers who even know that.
Well,
so
you provided a perfect example of critical thinking beyond your bias, right? You don't like Scientology. You're against Scientologists. You're like, this is bad and this is not good for society and it's bad for individuals. But you're still able to put that aside and acknowledge that these people have made these PSAs that are very, very good. And so that is a matter of being able to take the good thing out of what you disagree with.
You didn't
right?
like him.
What?
Exactly.
It hurt him.
Yeah. And that's how it is sometimes. Sometimes you have to be uncomfortable to accept that there are points to be had. I was having a discussion on Twitter the other day at like 4 a.m, because of course I was. And I was I was feeling snazzy, and somebody was talking about the consistency when it comes to Christianity versus, well, if God says it, then and God can do it, but we have to follow what he says. So like God says this is bad, so why is it okay for God to do it? And I'm trying to explain to who I think was an atheist, maybe I'm assuming, that that's not inconsistent to Christianity, because Christianity believes that God is outside the moral objectives that he gives to humans. And so, but if you don't understand that, you're just going to assume that it's inconsistent all the time, and you're never going to have a good you're not going to be able to counter the argument.
Exactly. I mean, just to throw it out there, people can do whatever they're going to do with this. Obviously, I'm not going to go on some roll about it, but I have found that there's 2 other stages to good critical thinking that are really, really important to understanding people and applying it to living people, right? Not just logic problems. And that is emotional acknowledgement. Like you got to acknowledge that people have emotions.
Yeah.
And that those emotions are powerful influencers in people's lives.
Yes.
I know. I'm
my
kind of a
therapist.
psychology guy, so I go in this direction.
Your feelings are valid, and in fact that your facts do care about your feelings, and vice versa.
Yeah, exactly. Your feelings don't
my
care about
therapist told me
facts.
I do have feelings. Yeah.
Well, there are feelings, but then I'm just saying that that's a precursor to emotional intelligence. Because I can talk about emotional intelligence, but factually, for a lot of people, and this is something I've just kind of learned in doing this on my show, is you start talking about emotional needs, and people are like, "My emotional what? I have what? Yeah. What's that now?
Oh, no.
Emotional needs? I don't have emotional needs. What are you talking about?" And I go, "No, you
I
do.
was like
They're
that.
all
Are you kidding me?
What's that?
I was like that. I said that.
Serious.
Wow, that's a thing.
I figured out it's bullshit, but I actually believed that.
You believed what?
That he had no
that I don't have any emotional needs.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, you do. Everybody does. If you're human,
Yeah,
you got emotional needs. Yeah. I get it. I'm just saying that's a part of. The reason I put that out there is because the reason I put it out there is because we're not Mr. Spock, right? You're not going to be able to assess
That's what she
people
said.
and figure stuff out if
She said you're not Mr. Spock, like with that language.
Chris, you just made Barry have like an existential time crisis.
Yeah.
No,
Yes.
she said that. She said you're not Mr.
Yeah.
Spock. And I said, well, like, I mean, what's wrong with Mr. Spock? And then we had another discussion about how
Can
that
we
would be
talk-
pretty much unfair.
Can we talk about?
What did she say next, Chris?
Sorry, Chris, go on.
Can we talk about
What's
how
it-
Mr. Spock is not the best example for this? Mr. Spock was half human, and so that was his struggle getting away
well,
from
that
that
was his
emotional
struggle,
side.
wasn't it?
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But that's
All
why
right, to
I
Paul
always
then,
use
how about
Mr.
that?
Spock.
Because he is
That's
That's even
struggling.
worse,
Yeah.
because she was on
okay,
drugs
yeah,
that made her
yeah.
have emotions, so that's also no good. We need to pick someone else. Sarek, how about that?
Oh no.
Oh,
No, it's even worse.
Anyway,
All right,
I happen to believe that
She was
that's a very
definitely on
vital
drugs.
part
She
of
was
this,
doing a
that's
lot
all.
of
Cybok, there you go.
Yeah.
So we
Yeah,
Oh,
anyway, the point
The
is,
character, not
yeah,
the
Chris
actress.
is right.
Okay, yeah.
do you guys think that atheists online particularly struggle with the facts don't care about your feelings thing?
Yes.
That rhetoric?
everybody
Yes.
does.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely awful. Not just
Yeah.
atheists. I've seen stupid shit online saying facts don't care about your feelings. Man, we all live emotional lives,
Oh.
whether you like it or not.
I've done
Even
that.
me.
Exactly.
I mean, I've done that
Hmm.
shit. I mean, we've all done that at some point, right? I mean,
I think so.
Yeah.
it's like, oh,
Mm.
that's an example. That's a personal thing. That doesn't mean anything to their argument. Fuck off. I don't care about what happened with your grandma 10 years ago. Yeah. Fuck off. Give me the facts. I want to see the links. We've all done that.
Show
Yeah.
me where your grandma showed up
Yeah,
back
yeah.
in your life as a ghost. Like, is that where
Right.
is that where we're going
Yeah,
with this?
exactly.
Where's
yeah,
the
yeah.
video footage, my man?
The video footage,
Yeah.
yeah, facts don't care. Jesus, what a terrible thing to say. Facts don't care about your feelings. What the
I mean,
fuck are you stupid prick.
I mean, I guess ultimately that is kind of like dehumanizing, right? To say that like the facts don't care about
Oh, it's
your
worse than that. You're saying that your version of the facts is somehow better than everybody else's, and you're just calling it facts because you do not understand that what you're doing is putting a narrative on things. If you don't understand the basics of what your own brain is doing, then what good are you when we're trying to have grown-up discussions?
Exactly.
Like I'm not.
Yeah,
When
exactly.
I say things, I'm just putting my own narrative on things. I'm not trying to say that like it's the only way of looking at things. I sell it like that because I like being strong, wording things strongly. But actually, I'm very flexible. And I realize that whatever I have believed now is really just the best I can do with the information I have at the moment. And that's for the most
Right.
strongest opinions I have right now. The most
But you know
firm
that
opinions
that's a
I have are like that.
minority. But and you fully recognize that that's a minority view.
Yes,
what you
but
just
it's holding
said.
us back, I think, as a species.
I agree. And that's why I think
Yeah.
this is a vital part of teaching critical thinking is part of the thinking is you got to include the emotional component or you're fucked. And
Yeah,
a
yeah,
lot
that-
of people in the atheist world don't think that's true.
Well, I think it's
You know,
I
and that's
didn't think
why
it
I,
was
that's
true.
why I
Yeah.
preach it.
is it not
You know?
ridiculous and irrational to try to pretend that humans are not emotional?
Right?
Yeah.
It's not that you pretend, it's
And-
that you've come to a decision that emotions are useless. That's a different thing than pretending they don't exist. It's you've come to a
Sure,
conclusion based on nothing, that based on, I guess, being a dude bro, that these emotions are just getting in your way. And they're not like, I mean, you could see the evolutionary path of emotions. You could see them in a number of ways. One thing you could see them as an alarm system. And when the alarm goes off, you have to listen to it. You wake up, wake up, wake up. It doesn't have to tell you what to do, but you can still notice it, and it's still very useful. Even though an alarm doesn't tell you what to do, it's still a very useful thing. That's one way of looking at emotions, like strong emotions, like feeling very sad or very angry.
Yep.
But
They're
there's other
reactionary.
explanations for it that are perfectly reactionary. There's other explanations for it that are perfectly in line with evolutionary and perfectly in line with fucking Ben Shapiro, whatever he thinks facts
Oh
are.
God.
Right?
Oh
Don't-
God, he's brought out the Shapiro.
Oh no. This is-
Oh.
He's
Well,
trying-
hold
me back, man.
Dude, it's
Hold
1
me
o'clock in the
back.
morning here, okay? Everybody's
Yeah.
getting Shapiro'd, whether you want to or not.
Hold me back.
Well, it's clear
I'm
that
sorry.
he doesn't. Shapiro doesn't care about anybody's needs. I mean, look at the needs of his wife. He doesn't care about her. But,
Good, that's
his,
it. Well
his
done.
sister's okay. His sister's okay.
oh no.
Women can't have an orgasm. Did you know that? They're not able to by biology.
Hmm.
Oh, biology. Women ain't even wet, bro.
Yeah.
Water resistant. So,
Oh.
Water
Oh, I hate that
resistant.
guy.
yeah.
So I'm just
Uh,
my wife's a doctor. My wife's a doctor. How many times did you say that? Too?
so
Apparently not a gynecologist.
I'm gonna go through some of the super chats that we've got here. We got Vandelia said for $4.99, when I stopped going to church after 25 years, I had a hard time making new friends and getting together besides random YouTube comments. And I think that's a really good point of things that people need to be concerned about, because that's not necessarily healthy. Right? If your only like social interaction is the YouTube comment section.
Oh god damn.
That's why I'm saying
That
real
makes-
life communities, there's
Yeah.
no fucking substitute.
Yeah.
You know, and if you want to organize something that's not political, not particularly contentious until you get it formed, and then you have to start dealing with all the drama.
Right.
This is the way to go. I'm telling you, is put some official, support system together, and people will flock. I'm telling you, I watch it happen right here in Denver. We've got hundreds of people on
Do you
board.
think then that the atheist community should essentially they spend a lot of time focusing, I think, the atheist communities spend a lot of time focusing on online communities. Do you think that it would be more beneficial to have like a general online community, and that online community's job is to help you set up an atheist community in your area, which would then
That would be
cater
awesome.
specifically and provide resources to help you build that local area?
hot
Yeah.
single atheist communities in your area.
Hot atheists waiting to meet you.
I gotta
Yeah,
you guys
right.
continue and answer the question. I gotta let my dog out of the room because he's like, I don't know if you can see
Okay.
him over there, but he's like
Aw.
I can see the dog. He's
Yeah,
anxious.
Aw.
he's
Hey,
getting into some
buddy.
nonsense. So please continue. Ignore me. I'll be back momentarily.
Hey, can we also just mention for a second too that the other problem with some of these atheist communities is that there's a bit of a grift going on at this point. I mean, whether or not it was, a well-intentioned organization in the beginning, they've been hijacked by, certain folks, and now that they're just out there to, do
Example.
things on social media. Okay,
Pay
atheists-
$10 for a certificate to show people that you're
Yeah.
an atheist.
Oh, you've seen that, have you, Dave?
Oh, gee.
Wow,
Wow,
yeah.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Got to
Oh,
throw that
sweet
one out there
Jesus.
because that was the worst.
And by the
idea
way,
ever.
the cost of that is the least problematic part of it,
Right.
from my point
Oh
of
yeah,
view.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but the cost
Yeah.
was a thing. Well, you see,
Well,
you see
here's
that's
the
what
thing,
I'm
Why
you-
talking about.
these-
If I may, I might suggest that while it's definitely a negative and something nobody wants, it also indicates you've kind of arrived as an activity because the grifters start coming around to grift on it.
Okay.
Mm.
I mean, I'm just
Yay.
saying, if you're not significant
Yeah.
or important or something that's worth paying attention to, then you wouldn't get any of that. Just to spin a little positivity on that, because it's not because there's no preventing it. Scammers are a dime a dozen. Believe me, I know.
Right.
Mm.
You know,
But
they're
I
a
just
dime
wonder
a
if that's
fucking dozen.
also a product of why so much has been, migrated to online, because it's easier to do that, right? It's easier to
Yeah.
grift, folks out of a few bucks here and there online, as opposed to, doing the groundwork, right? Because I mean, if anybody's actually been involved in any sort of activism, we know that's where the real work's done, right? It's
Yep.
on the ground. It's not, hashtag, follow this bullshit kind of thing. So,
Seamus looks so much better with the steampunk shades than I do. That's embarrassing.
oh, thanks.
They're pretty
Yeah,
rad.
you do look fantastic.
Did you guys get me
Thanks.
completely removed off of YouTube while I was gone?
Absolutely.
We tried.
No,
We
it's
tried.
Some low-level stuff about Jews.
Oh God, no! I saw Jordan Peterson tweeting about that earlier today, and I was just like, I'm not even.
Right.
I'm not.
Right.
Nope.
I think I think he meant that that he thinks that if other people have that attitude, then it's going to be problematic. I don't think he meant that himself. He couldn't have done
Does anybody
He
really
could have,
know?
and he could have, and he couldn't have. Yeah,
Does-
exactly.
I-
Does
Like,
anybody
it's not-
really
it's
know
said
what
it like
any
that.
of like Jordan Peterson's actual positions are? Because that dude is a wishy-washy motherfucker.
He is, but he goes
The
on
only
so
thing
much
is
with Hitler, like
Talk
it would
a
be
lot of
very
bollocks
weird.
and get money sent.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well-
there's about
Mm.
3 things I've learned from Jordan Peterson, and after that, everything is just sort of gish galloping and word salad.
I like the stuff he did.
which
About, I
is-
like the,
Well,
I like his
Chris,
psychology lectures about
Chris,
movies
did you
and
really
books.
learn from him though? Did you learn from him?
Did you learn something
Did you
about
learn?
lobsters?
I
Because
don't
it's
know.
probably
I don't know.
wrong.
No, I
You
learned
could learn how
something
to do a
about
good drinking
morality and the
presentation.
education of it from him.
Mhm.
But most importantly, I learned something on his actual profession of
Ah.
clinical psychologist.
Mm-hmm.
He said something that was really important that I needed to hear so I could understand why Dianetics sometimes seems to produce a result on
okay.
somebody.
Oh, good.
And it was insightful. It had to do with responsibility. And this is a man who has spent, thousands of hours dealing with people. And on that expertise, I am actually willing to listen to him. He had some interesting things to say about archetypes, which was just something I didn't know anything about. So he turned me on to that, and myth
Jungian
and legend and
archetypes.
story.
Yep.
And that was cool. And everything else has been word salad. And I watched him with Sam Harris, and I watched him again with Sam, and I watched him do other things. I went down the Peterson rabbit hole, and it's not a very interesting one, to be honest.
I can't.
I liked his lectures about movies and books, the archetype stuff. It was very interesting.
He's dedicated
a
a
lot.
lot of his life to those archetypes and like discussing them and talking about like analyzing them and how they're applicable. And so when it comes to like those archetypes and what they are and to a degree what they mean, perfectly fine to listen on. But this is the quote unquote, like he likes the baby with the bathwater. From my understanding and from like what I've read, and you guys please feel free to correct me because I'm stupid. I'm the master debater. I'm not anything else. Does he it seems like there are other people who have said what Jordan Peterson has said, generally in a better way without the additional bullshit.
Oh, absolutely.
You can see that.
Absolutely.
These two guys, though, for sure, right? You guys,
but he was the one I heard it from first,
right?
Sure, yeah, where you're introduced to something first versus, yeah.
Yeah, because then you go to Young, and then you go to Joseph Campbell, then you can go down the line on story analysis and characters and meta-analysis of how stories work, and it's fascinating stuff. That's not what he taught me. He just gave me that intro to that world, and you're absolutely right. None of that's original thinking to him.
Right.
It's just him promoting it and talking about it from a psychological perspective, and frankly, there's some spot on stuff there. But trying to pin that guy down, he's full of Schrodinger's opinions. You never know where this guy's coming from.
Well said.
Well,
who cries more though, him or Glenn Beck? That's what I want to know.
Oh God.
You know what I mean? That's kind of what they both do. I think the other problem, and I think
Jordan Peterson ended up in a clinic in Belgrade. I wouldn't wish that on anyone.
After he complained about
what you said.
Go ahead. Sorry, I'm not going down that rabbit hole.
Well, just super quick. I remember we talked to Valerie Tirico about him. Just him and among others, but she pinpointed him as because that. And I'm not trying to get political, but extreme. Yeah. So this idea of, a lot of young men coming up and now toxic masculinity and a lot of woke verbiology has scared a lot of, insecure men, not to go a step further. Where do they have to go? And as she points, they go to people like Jordan Peterson, and he reimagines some things, as Chris just pointed out, and comes off as a god to these folks. So it's no wonder that he has all these people in his camp.
A lot of people these days have never heard of any 19th century grand narratives. So when Jordan Peterson comes out with, because modernism and postmodernism smashed him to pieces. So when Jordan Peterson comes out with this basically Christian right-wing grand narrative stuff, it does sound new and interesting, and people mightn't have the tools they need to immediately realize how much bullshit it is, because it's been taken care of by everybody since Simone de Beauvoir, I guess.
I mean, isn't there something to be said for, one, the first time you're introduced to a concept, in which case he might be useful, and two, feeding or promoting or getting your stuff from a group that feels like they have nowhere else to go.
Yeah.
Do you have one side to your headphones? Oh, thank God. It was throwing me off
she has
completely.
hair.
I could only see one side of it. And every time you moved your head, I could only see one side of it. I was like, how is she wearing asymmetrical headphones? How did they stay on? Never mind, I'm good. Carry on, as you were. Yeah, no, I think you're right.
She's talented.
All right. So now that we've completely sidelined the conversation about Jordan Peterson with my headphones, thank God for that. No, thank God for that. Let's talk about Jordan Peterson. I actually do.
Those headphones are specifically designed to attract men.
What?
That's our Jordan Peterson joke. I'm sorry.
My lips are red.
Yeah.
We
There's
know what's going on. Don't worry.
I have reached out to a young woman named Mika who talks about rhetoric and has a degree in that field, and I'm hoping that I'll be able to get her on to talk about Jordan Peterson in the future, and that's going to be a hell of a lot of fun. But so Vandalia also for 199 said if only Logan had been in the MCU back then. So I do want to point out, yeah, Logan's not part of the MCU. So if you want to talk about whether or not how many heroes we do or do not need, because in my opinion, the MCU covers things that are a little bit more complicated necessarily than the standard hero archetype. For example, Tony Stark and PTSD.
Right.
What happened to our treats? Go lay down.
So if we
those are a cultural reflection of the archetype, but the archetype still remains. You know,
right.
That's the thing, is it can go from culture to culture and remain itself. Yet we are now hyper aware of PTSD and complex PTSD and the importance of this now. So we put that onto the hero, and it doesn't change the archetype, but it just changes the nature of the stories we use to tell that. Right.
So I would argue that the entire Breaking Bad universe, including Better Call Saul, is all PTSD based. If you think about it, the total character arcs of all the characters all involve some form of PTSD,
some sort of trauma.
Yes, the trauma of having cancer, the trauma of being, your life threatened, and becoming a villain. You see that where he fucking snaps off the edge. Everybody around him has PTSD because they're fucking dealing with fucking Heisenberg. Saul himself, yeah.
So is there like could you take, so like the stories of the Bible exist, or is there a secular version of those stories that you could then sort of implement in the same sort of way?
That's it. That's what we just did.
That's,
right.
That's what
Breaking
these
Bad
comic books are, right?
Yeah, maybe don't use Breaking Bad.
Any novel or any movie.
Oh, come on.
I mean, the movies, exactly. Fantasy movies. I mean, Tolkien.
Things Lord of the Rings.
Not any movie. We're not using goddamn rom-coms as archetypes of romance.
Will have something in there.
No,
we have one
in there.
No,
we have one film.
Maybe not Left Behind. Maybe not that movie.
We have one movie that embodies. That's cool. One movie that embodies all of philosophy, and that is The Big Lebowski.
Dave,
so there you go.
Which movie?
The Big Lebowski.
The Big Lebowski.
Oh my God.
Yeah. My John Hamill, who was supposed to be here, and then you guys got, Barry. Sorry, Barry. He did a wonderful blog on the fact.
Wait, what happened?
You know about this, right? John did a blog about the Big Lebowski, about how it covers almost every version of philosophy and just hits all these moments. You know what I'm talking about.
Sorry, you couldn't have John here to talk to you about it there.
I was fucking with you.
Sorry about that. Sorry, I'm not John.
Well, Dave, what do you think? What do you think the ultimate story or movie is for philosophy?
James.
Truman Show is a good one.
Oh, Dave.
Ooh. Sorry. The Truman Show is a good one.
Skepticism, epistemology, kind of virtue ethics, and the ethics of treating other people as commodities and all that kind of stuff.
Well, that's a really good point, because it kind of brings into question. It brings in the gaslighting. It brings in how do you recognize different types of abuse? Oh my God! Oh shit! I'm gonna have I'm having a crisis.
Reason.
Okay, well, guys, there's links below. Go find that video. If you give me the link, I'll add it to the description down below to watch that one. We have been told that we need to worship Gold God. So any Stargate fans, Any of you guys watch Stargate?
Oh, is that what that was a reference to?
Gould, yeah.
I wonder. Yeah, I didn't get that reference.
Yeah, no, the Gould
Is that
are
part of
like
the series or is that in a movie? Is that in a movie too?
Technically both, but I don't know if they're
Okay.
I don't remember if they're named as the Gould, but the ancient Egyptian gods are basically these like tapeworm aliens. We got one that says that IOPNC 1, and I don't know if that's supposed to be pronounced differently, said that they want to talk to you about Stephen Fishman someday. So do you have...
Oh, I responded to that comment. I said, yeah, email me or whatever. I've done a couple of videos about that guy. He was a con man who came in and tried to use Scientology as a kind of legal defense. It was a little weird. Ended up going to jail.
Good. Just off of that description, good. How is Scientology a legal defense in any capacity?
Sort of the same way insanity is a defense. Like, well, I was brainwashed, so kind of thing. But he went off and made his own stuff up about it. It was actually quite interesting watching that guy roll.
Fascinating.
Yeah, didn't keep him out of jail though.
Oh, that's probably for the best. Vandalia for $4.99 said, "Forget anti-vaxxers and QAnons. The most argumentative people on the planet are anime and fiction character shippers." So, are you guys? I don't know how much you guys are familiar with this. Are you guys familiar with like what a waifu is?
I've seen the first 10 episodes of Attack on Titan.
Yeah, okay. So Mikasa would have been a waifu. So basically,
Mikasa, yeah, don't mess with her.
See, like there you go. That's it. That's what it is. It's like we've attached
somebody don't mess with.
We have a parasocial relationship with a fictional character, and we will defend them to the ends of the earth because they are the best. That's what it is.
Oh, okay.
And so, like,
or they are a representation of an archetype that you feel represents you.
Or you're projecting something onto them.
I do not want to talk about women in fiction and how many years of my life were spent not feeling represented by a single individual.
I'm sure. I'm sure.
But, okay, so back to topic. We talked about structuring the atheist community and structuring a support system. So I think we should go around and say, all right, well, what would that structure look like? And I think that will be our last thing to do. And then we'll get everybody to say who they are and what they do. And then we'll wrap up. So we've got like a good maybe 20 minutes of conversation left. So just for anybody watching at home. Okay. So what would that support structure look like? And I think we should start with Barry. Then we'll go to Seamus. Then we'll go to Chris. Then we'll go to Dave.
Why go first?
Oh, sorry. Is that a problem for you?
No. Okay. What does structure look like? You see, I honestly don't know.
It's a support structure, right? Not just an
support
atheist
structure. Yeah.
If we're all agreeing that atheists, like people coming out of religion or atheists in general, don't have the same kind of support structure that you would see. This isn't really for you. This is for people watching. I know you understand.
Oh, okay. I really don't know, because no matter what way I look at it, I'm going to end up. Like Chris made a very good point. At some point, if people don't have the skills to be able to figure out what your basic moral behavior is going to look like, you're just going to have to tell them. And that's very uncomfortable, telling people how to act in a sort of a moral way. I'm not into that at all. So I don't know. I just feel I have emotional responses to it that preclude me from signing off on anything.
That's fair. Basically, he's saying, I don't know. I'll have to come back to that once I've processed how I feel about it.
It would have to be by agreement with those people. That's something I don't think Chris thinks there's a line where that doesn't make sense.
Yeah, how would you agree with people that can't come to, like, that don't have that capacity?
That's what I'm telling you. I'm telling you I have nothing to offer to this particular question.
That's where you have to have those common denominator consequences for bad behavior, right?
Sure, yeah.
And that's what God is so fucking useful for.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very useful device to force that
when you see it easy enough. But you're looking for a structure, and you can't have like
Yeah,
A
it's
structure
rough.
is
It's a rough
difficult. I don't
one.
know. I really don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
Why don't
It's hard to-
atheists
it's hard
ever
to find
agree
it.
on anything? Seamus, what do you
Yeah.
got? What do you think? What do you think a structure would look like that would have this kind of thing? And I will answer as well, just to make you guys feel better. I'm just gonna tell you how it is.
So you're specifically asking about for folks that are coming out of religion?
Well,
Is
if
that
you're
what
going to if you're going to set up like a group or like because I think we agreed on having an online group that is accessible online at the very least, that their main focus should probably be helping atheists set up local areas. So your local areas would not be the
okay.
same, obviously. And so
Right.
what would that structure look like?
Oh, jeez.
You don't just get to listen. This is Debate Hub. You don't just get to sit around and bitch and say
Yeah,
everybody
buddy.
else is doing it wrong. You gotta
I mean,
bring
you
something to the
just kinda-
table.
You can say everybody else is wrong. That's the gift of Wittgenstein to philosophy.
Yeah.
You can just say everybody else is wrong and then don't replace it with anything.
Okay, all right. Figure it out, fuckers.
I mean, if you're looking at like a centralized hub
Sure.
to assist the locals, if you will, then I think you would just try to establish some sort of basics of, what atheist is, well, geez, man, even doing that.
Yeah,
is
I had
gonna
no
be-
idea either, Seamus. Don't worry about it.
even doing that even sounds like a fucking slippery fucking slope, right?
It does, doesn't it?
Because you get these definitions that just don't exist, or don't exist in certain avenues, right? I mean, FFRF I think does the best of just trying to put information out there, right? They do a lot of modeling, sort of what some of the religious folks do as far as pamphlets, like where they leave. Do you have Jesus in your life? Where they'll leave, do you know what the fuck Jesus really is? Kind of like counter arguments, right? So they do a lot of that kind of good work, and they do great work altogether. I think they're the best organization out there, honestly, as far as secular and atheist related. But man, I don't know, because at some point you have to have a common denominator, one that everybody's going to agree on. Is this going to be? Yeah,
Do you need one that everybody needs to agree on, or do you only need one that group is going to agree on?
Well, I think he means everybody in the group, right?
Oh, everyone in the group.
Everyone.
Right.
Everyone in the group's going to get on board with it, right?
Right, but then I would also add to what I think you said before, Chesh, was that, or maybe it was Barry. I don't want to, but one of you said something about that. Well,
Maybe it was
10 years from
John.
now, that could be not. Yeah, easy, Barry. 10 years from now, that might not be the case. You know what I mean?
Right.
There's always this, need to flex and change and grow. Which is really hard for us Americans to do because we have founding fathers that we have to embrace and foster. But anyways,
so you don't know either. You're not sure about how.
No, I really don't know what the best answer is. I think we have to just go on what we all agree in, which is that there is no God. The concept of a God is based on bullshit, and what it's used for is very problematic here, and that's what we need to fight against.
Yeah, that goes into a whole nother conversation, right?
Yeah, okay, maybe not. Yeah.
Well, no, you're right, because that goes on to like shifting the conversation, because the conversation initially by the atheist movement was religion bad, not God doesn't exist. And then that has shifted over the years to now conversations about whether God exists versus whether or not religion is problematic.
Right.
So do we shift back? Is that what you kind of see as the structure of like, that's the direction of like, listen, religion's problematic, here's why. We don't care what you do or do not believe. We personally don't believe this, but if you're a Christian, you might be able to join us in our religion is problem.
Yeah, honestly, I'm more against religion. I'm more of an anti-theist than I am, an atheist, honestly. Just because, somebody believing God in a closet doesn't affect my life day to day.
Right.
I mean, it honestly doesn't. you know. But
Right.
somebody who is sitting on the Supreme Court bench and wants, you know, my values to mimic, you know, his Bronze Age style, but that's a problem. So, you know, that's my enemy. You know, that's what I need to address.
I have a separate question for Chris at some point, and you don't have to answer right now, but I kind of just want to see the look on your face when I ask the question. What does a Supreme Court that's stacked with Scientologists look like?
Oh
Tom
my.
Cruise.
Yeah. Well, a bunch of people
Travolta.
like Tom Cruise. Yeah. I mean, Travolta would probably actually be fairly level-headed.
Yeah,
Comparatively.
fair. Yeah.
Wow.
Compared to
Eight of
Tom
them, and they'll say
Cruise?
there was always 8 of them.
Tom Cruise is nuts. Tom Cruise is absolutely whack. So I wouldn't want him anywhere near any of that. That would be an ugly thing. We would not want that. We would not want that at all.
So,
you know?
How awful is it that his movies are doing well again, too? You know?
It annoys me to no end. You know?
Yeah, it does me too. I mean, even if I like the film, I'd be like, God damn it, why did he have to be in this? You know, it'd be like one of the, you know,
Yeah.
and it's,
Yeah,
I can only imagine.
I'm incapable of watching him now, specifically him. I don't have some blanket policy about not watching Scientologists on screen because some of them do amazing work sometimes. But Cruise is, I just know too much about the guy, and I can't respect him or suspend my disbelief long enough.
There's
when I see
only
him.
2 movies that I willingly watch that have Tom Cruise in them anymore, and one of them is Tropic Thunder, and that's only because he's a tertiary role, and second
and
is...
and it's kind of awesome.
Yeah.
It's kind of awesome.
Yeah.
The second is Legend, because that was so far before all of everything.
The Outsiders.
Oh, that's funny. That's
The
hilarious.
Outsiders is pretty good, but I haven't watched it. I just read the book.
I'll tell you the one to watch. I mean, if you really want to watch a good performance from Cruise, it's Magnolia.
Oh.
Because he plays himself.
I kind of thought that's where you were going to go.
Yeah, totally. That's the punchline on that. It's totally true. The guy he plays is a complete asshat. And I'm telling you, that character is as close to Tom Cruise as you're ever going to see on the screen for real. Because his real persona is not Maverick.
Oh, yeah. No. God, no.
No.
God, no.
That's not what he's really like. You know?
All right. So,
anyway.
Structuring.
But I want to be Goose.
If you... Fuck off. So, if you... All right. So, when it comes to, like, a support structure, because you've gone through it, what do you think could be better, worse? What kind of structure do you think that would be good for the kind of like a general umbrella atheist to be able to put together?
This is me now?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, pretty much what's organically evolved. I mean, if we kind of trust how things are rolling out, pretty much what we have, which I described earlier with Denver, what we see in Arizona. I think there's one out in Vegas as well. And these are people who organize enough to get some fundraising done to get a building so they don't have to meet at the back of a Denny's or at a bar or something, right? They want a place to go and a place where speakers can come and a place where kids can come and where picnics can be held or where social events can be done and where AA meetings or FFRF meetings can be done. And it's all under the same roof and it's cared for by the same structure, and that structure is, you know, in Denver we call it the secular hub, and in other places they call it other things. I think there's an ethical committee or group or something out in New England I went and spoke to that has a similar kind of setup. They literally built their own buildings. They got some big money donors, and it's just a place where secular activities happen, and that's about as much organic agreement as I've seen of atheist groups. Is, well, we'll all agree that this is secular, and on that point you can get that necessary agreement from everybody that they'll even pay in dues to be part of it, and that's where the money comes from, you know. And that and fundraising, and you get a couple go-getters, and it's not hard to do this, which is why it's already happened. And that's, I think, the model we're going to keep seeing in these, you know, as we see so-called atheist communities form up. It'll be on this kind of a model. So I don't, you know, necessarily have to do a lot of hard thinking about it because I've been part of it, and I think it works, and it grows by itself. You don't have to, nudge it along. It does roll out with a few people willing to carry some weight.
Yeah, it sounds to me like there's a big difference between what is locally available and possible versus what is available and possible online. Locally, you're going to have a lot more success in getting people to work together because they actually have to interact face to face with each other. Whereas online, the best you're going to get is sort of like this general overhang that's like, here, listen, we're here to help you get resources to help you set up shop locally. And that's like the best you're going to get.
Yeah, exactly. Because okay, here an analogy, not the same thing, but an analogy would be the Aftermath Foundation, which exists to help people coming out of the Sea Org or coming out of Scientology, and actually literally is an artificial support system for people who have none.
Right.
And it's completely fundraised. It's a nonprofit. Leah Remini and some people I know, my friends, set it up. I'm not part of it. And it's this nonprofit, and it takes two people to kind of run, but they have this whole network of volunteers and people who have given money. And from all of that, just from private, no grants, no nothing, they have made a support system so people coming out of the Sea Org or Scientology can land, have a place to, get a place to live, get a car, set them up. Right. And help them get a job.
It's
and
that
really
more
put their feet on the ground.
It's that more extreme level of like,
yeah, that's your next stage, right? And that's, but it doesn't take a lot to put it there, But we're not even necessarily doing that much in the atheist world. We're just taking the first initial step of let's provide some community. That's about as much as I think you're going to get done online. You need to go real world to provide real world support. And I think that's the point I was making with the Aftermath thing.
Yeah. Dave, what do you think?
I agree with what Chris is saying here, in that it's kind of hard to form these kind of structures, but there already is a kind of pipeline that goes on when people are leaving religion. They take to YouTube, they do searches, they come across all the big names and kind of, not thought leaders, that's not quite the right word, but like, said before, atheist celebrities.
Yeah.
And I think if those people could be organized, they could help create these structures. It of course means working together. I mean, we already see like atheist gatherings. What was it called? Better. I think there was a thing recently called Better, run by Tang. And so we already have all these kind of things, and we already have quite well-known people. It means getting them together and getting them organized and starting to spread word and create the bigger structures in the way that Chris mentioned.
So it's like it's a matter of the pieces are there, they're just not currently put together.
They're not put together, yeah.
Do you guys have anybody you would recommend? So if you're coming out of something and you're going and doing those YouTube searches and you're going to kind of start getting out of whatever you're part of, do you guys have anybody or any YouTube channels or whatever, if you're doing online searches, do you guys have anybody you'd recommend in particular? You can say yourselves.
There's a bunch of philosophy tubes. There's a bunch of philosophy YouTubers. I'd recommend any of those.
So you'd say if you're coming out of religion, go to philosophy.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Oh, I say go to Carl Sagan. Okay. That's where I landed. Demon Haunted World changed my life. Put me on the path, so to speak, in terms of even recognizing critical thinking was a thing. James Randi, Penn and Teller, some of those guys, they're entertaining as well as informative.
Those are really good ones, yeah.
I mean, they capture you, and then you find yourself learning shit that you didn't even,
accidentally
think you knew. You think that was happening. It's kind of like The Good Place. It's a great, it's a whole course in philosophy and ethics and morals.
Yeah.
Around a TV show. That's like quite well put together. So that kind
Who
of stuff,
died and left Aristotle in charge of ethics?
Watch The Good Place.
That was brilliant. Yeah,
that's fantastic.
It was great. I learned a lot from it, and I really enjoyed it at the same time. And that's kind of what I'm talking about earlier when I was talking about teaching and stories and how you get them across to people. Is that's a perfect example of what I'm talking about.
Yeah. No, I think that's a really good point. Is just being able to learn from stories and not maybe thinking that you're above learning or stories.
Right.
Because
That's right.
are any of us?
Yeah.
Nope.
I'm not above anything.
All right. We'll start wrapping it up here. Who are you? What do you do? Seamus, you start.
Okay. That's it. My name's Seamus, and I'm an sorry, wrong show. Wrong meeting. I host the Free Thought Prophet. Like I said before, it's four guys that go on about things in the secular world. We try to also address some political things as well that are adjacent. Every once in a while, we do what's called a historical crack, although that's going to be kind of shifted to a new podcast, which somebody else is a part of. It's called The Jib, and that we're looking at in January. So we'll talk more about that at some point. So,
All right. Awesome. Barry, you want to jump off of Seamus since you guys are part of the same area?
Hey, my name's John Hamill. My Twitter is jhamill himself. My blog is Adminton43. I've been an atheist campaigner for many years, and that's my contribution. Thank you very much for having me.
All right, Chris, what do you got for us?
Find my channel, Chris Shelton MSc. Find my website, mncriticalthinking.com. I do podcasts, I do YouTube videos, and I do consultation, by the way, too. I'm not a licensed therapist or counselor, but if people need intervention help, they need help with advice or direction on family and friends, or you come out of a cult, you don't know where the hell to go or what to do, I can help. And that's what I do. So that's out there for people as well.
Links are down below for everyone. Dave, what do you got for us?
I'm Dave, obviously. I usually stream with Joe on Answers and Reason every Tuesday and Thursday, and I have my own channel as well, Trolley Dave. And we mostly talk about critical thinking, how to be a better skeptic, atheism, philosophy, religion, and sometimes films.
Yeah, because that's something we didn't even really get into is skepticism and how that's gone to shit.
yeah. It's a huge problem in the atheist community is lack of.
Well, hopefully, or like the misapplication.
Yes.
Because I think
All
that would
flat
be
earthers are skeptics.
Oh God, shut up. No, start. No, we can't. Don't
Are
do
you
this to
skeptical
me.
about my skepticism?
Oh, this is illegal.
I don't know, am I?
Yes.
Listen, you do not get to question my skepticism.
That's fair enough, yeah.
All
So
right,
foolish
thank
of
you,
me.
all of you, for coming. Thanks for joining me today. This has been a fantastic conversation. I hope to see everybody soon.
Nice one.
And tomorrow is going to be an absolute dumpster fire. So, like, share, subscribe, all that good shit. But yeah, if you could do me the favor of sharing, that would be fantastic. Other than that, I don't care. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye.
Not all.
Bye.